Hello and welcome back to the Connection Compass podcast. It's your host here, Andrea. Renewal, our reflective container, is now available to purchase. Renewal contains a seasonal soul story, reflective prompts for self-inquiry, and a meditation. Written and created by myself, Renewal takes you on a journey from feeling stuck or unsure to remembering, rediscovering, and the next steps towards an open path. You can also access the meditation and reflective prompts on their own without the soul story and just the meditation on its own too. All the details are there in the show notes for you to access. But for now, it's time to introduce this week's guest. Today, I'm joined by entrepreneur Harriet Taylor, who specialises in soul-led and neuro-manifestation alignment and creating spaces where women can be seen, heard, and truly understood. In this episode, we talk about self-discovery, grief, creativity, and what it means to keep having to move forwards after profound loss. Harriet shares how losing her dad to suicide shaped her path, her work, and the way she supports women through their own health and life transitions. Together, we explore manifestation beyond the surface level, using lived experience as fuel for meaningful change, finding glimmers of hope even on the darkest of days. Hello and welcome, Harriet, to the Connection Compass podcast. How are you today?
Hi, very well, thank you. And thank you for asking me to be on the podcast. I feel very honoured.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited. So just for our listeners, please could you share a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Harriet. I am 38. I am mum to two girls and I'm married to my wonderful husband. And recently I've been on a bit of a journey of self-discovery. So I'm still exploring who I am. But what I do is I help women and support women through different life changes. So that's something that I'm navigating for myself at the moment.
Is. And what led you to do the work that you do in terms of helping women?
So I've always wanted to help people, and that's come from an early age. So at 11, I lost my dad to suicide, and I had a wonderful counsellor. And I remember always thinking, oh God, I wish I could help people like the way she helped me. So I went to college, I did fashion, and I ended up working in merchandising. And I just realised it just wasn't for me, and I wanted to be a counsellor. So I retrained in my I think I was about maybe 27 when I started back at
Yeah.
college. So I graduated in 2019, so I've been counselling people for a while. But then 2 years ago, I had a hysterectomy. And following on from that, it just made me realise how much women in particular suffer with health issues. And it just really made me want to work with women more. So it's not necessarily the health issues. I think I always felt dismissed or not listened to by GPs, and I think I wanted to support women in that way, creating a space for them to feel heard and supported and seen and valued. So since my hysterectomy, I always say I'm so grateful for it because it's kind of redirected me into the work that I do now. And a lot of the work is around connection and empowerment. And I think it's because I felt really disempowered. So that's like the core of what I do, really.
So you've really identified a gap in your own experience and you want to fill that gap for others and help others along the way.
Yeah, and I think I felt so alone with it all because I had a hysterectomy, I think 36 I was. So it's not like I could turn to many friends, and the GPs weren't that great, to be honest. And I just felt like I really lacked support. So I thought I'll create my own support. And I really wanted to share this with other women. And I think that's the main thing as well, that I felt quite alone with things in life. And I suppose I don't want other people to feel lonely. So I try and create that support where I can.
Yeah, real purpose.
Yeah.
And so I met you at an event called the Courageous Action events back in October. And the event was on the back end of a book called Courageous Action with
Yeah.
a group of 13 stories. Is that correct?
Yeah.
13
Yeah.
stories of ladies who took courageous action. So you were one of the ladies. So how
Yeah.
did you get involved in that? I'd love to hear the story.
So a couple of years ago, so before surgery, a friend of mine started talking about manifestation and she did a lot. And I thought it was all like, oh, it's a bit woo woo, like what's she going on about? But I was very intrigued by it. So I started looking at it from a science background and looking at the energy around it and mindset. So I come from like that kind of aspect, I suppose. So I started using manifestation and I was in Waterstones last December and I'm always drawn to books and there weren't any books I was drawn to. And I was like, I really want to write a book. I don't know what it'll be on, but I just knew that I had a story to share with people, with women. So I came home that day and I had my vision board for the year and I put on it a book and it just literally said my book. And a couple of months later, I was introduced to this lady, Louisa, who created the collaboration. And I just saw a post. But on that day, I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to have time to do a book. That's going to have to go on next year's like vision board. And then I saw her post and it was talking about a book collaboration and I messaged her and she's like, I've got one space left. So yeah, the timings were perfect.
Yeah.
And then it's crazy though, when I look back to my vision board, the colours of the book matches to the front cover of our book. So for me, it's a really a powerful example of how manifestation can work.
Yeah. Can we just talk a little bit about manifestation? Because it's very different for everybody, and some things that work for some people don't work for other people. So what does manifestation look like for you? What do you incorporate?
Yeah, of course. So for me, it's more about how something makes you feel
Okay.
and the energy around it and your mindset. So it does relate quite a lot to, I suppose, not necessarily counselling, but the emotional support, because a lot can be tied to your self worth, self esteem. Like, do I deserve it? Should I have this? Am I good enough for that? And the motivation as well. You can be driven by, I want to prove this to someone or I want to do that because I look good, not necessarily that internal validation. So I love doing vision boards, but there's a lot more to it. And when I do coaching, it's very similar to manifestation. And we go through like mindset, motivation. There's all these different elements that we go through. But for me, it's more about what your goal is, how is it making you feel and want that feeling. So that's the kind of the way that I approach it. So with the book, I knew that I wanted to share a story with women to help them feel heard and to help them feel seen. And I knew that I do that in one-to-one sessions, I suppose, but I wanted it to be to a wider audience. And I knew that a book would get to more women.
And so I heard you share your story at that event. Why did you want to share that particular story? Because it's a very emotive story, isn't it? And you were not only courageous in your story, but you were courageous getting up on stage and speaking about that story.
Too.
Sorry, go.
I was very nervous on that stage. So I was very vulnerable. I shared about losing my dad. I also shared about how I felt suicidal before I had my surgery. And I think I've had a lot of trauma in my life, but I don't want to be defined by trauma. And I want to use it, I suppose, in a positive way. And I wanted women to, I suppose, realize that, you might have gone through trauma or, life throws stuff at us, but it's okay. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. So I think I just wanted to highlight, although on our darkest days, we cannot see the light sometimes. There will always be a tiny, tiny glimmer. Sometimes we just have to really, really look for it.
What do you feel being involved in the book has changed for you?
So it was a strange one, really, because obviously I was writing the story and I knew it was going to be in a book. But for women to actually read it and message me and give feedback, it was quite overwhelming. It's done what I've wanted it to do, but I don't think I don't think I prepared myself for other people reading it. And yeah, that for probably about a month afterwards, I was just so overwhelmed. And it was so busy in the run up to it, and I'd been doing loads of other things. So the month afterwards, I was a bit flawed, to be honest. But there was one lady. So in the book, I talk about my childhood. I touch on it. I don't go into it massively. But my parents separated when I was 3. It wasn't an amicable split. And then obviously I lost my dad. So it was quite a traumatic childhood. And someone I know has read the chapter and she said, "You've made me realise that she's quite a toxic parent and she wants to like make amends with her children." And I wasn't expecting that response. I was like, wow. So that really threw me because I suppose I was writing it for people who had felt like as a child they'd had toxic parents. I didn't think it would resonate with parents realizing that their behavior was toxic, not intentionally. And she was like, I can now talk to my children and try and make it right with them. I wasn't expecting that at all. So it really threw me, but in a good way, because I was like, oh, it's like having a ripple effect. It's doing even more than I imagined it would.
And what does that feel like to know that you're creating those ripples and you're reaching people in ways that you didn't think was possible?
So I feel very proud. It was quite raw, and I mean, this year it's a bit of a cheesy cliche, I suppose, but it has been a real journey. I think the more vulnerable I am, the more I'm discovering about myself, and the more others can relate to me. It's been difficult. There's been a lot of emotions to process, but it's having a positive effect. And I always try and find positives wherever I can.
Mhm.
So for me, even though it's been a struggle and it's been difficult, there's been those positives that have been created from it.
So it's amazing that you're creating these ripples and that you're helping people in ways that you didn't expect. But obviously you had a plan to help others in perhaps other ways. How is your journey helping others in other ways?
So I suppose I thought the initial reaction from the book chapter would be around menopause because I talk a lot about my hysterectomy. So I was expecting a lot of people to reach out about that. And I do a lot of work around menopause because I was told there was a chance that I could wake up from surgery in surgical menopause because they didn't know what my ovaries were like. I did keep them, but they went to sleep for about a year. So I did a menopause practitioner course before surgery because I wanted to know what could potentially happen to my body. And I didn't have that support. So I was like, right, I'm going to educate myself because that's how I feel empowered. So that's why I did that. And at first, it was for personal use, but I was so gobsmacked that I didn't know any of this stuff. And I was like, wow, why do women not know about this? Or why is it not being talked about?
Yeah.
So I was like, I am on a mission to support women through menopause. And because I work with women holistically, I really wanted to come from a holistic approach. And I looked a lot at Eastern medicine and how in Japan it's really embraced. And I feel like maybe in Western medicine or UK, it's more feared.
Mm.
And there's like a bit of a perception around women who are menopausal. And I wanted to kind of change the narrative around it. So I do a lot of workshops about empowerment through menopause. And I think I'm 38 now, so I'm approaching my 40s. And with my journey of ADHD, I know that has a massive impact on hormones. So I feel like there's a lot of women around my age who are probably experience all of these symptoms if they've been diagnosed late with ADHD or autism, and then perimenopause comes into it as well, and it's just like, what's going on in life? And it becomes unmanageable. So I think this is really why I want to spread the awareness to, to help women feel less alone. And they're not going crazy. It's just, hormones have a massive impact on us.
So we've just left a 9-year cycle behind. So from 2018 to 2025, how have you changed during that time? What's happened in that time for you? And
So there's been a massive shift. I think becoming a mother, so my eldest is almost 10. So becoming a mother has definitely had a big impact on me. And I had a client recently and we was talking about children, and she said, "Oh, I really think I've got 2 girls, your girls were sent to you to help you heal." And that's something that's really stayed with me because how I parent is completely different to how I was parented. So it's been a real big learning curve. I've not got my official diagnosis yet, but I've been diagnosed with ADHD through my daughter. And I think a lot of women in around my age, that's happening to them as well. So I feel like having children has exposed unhealed parts and flaws, and it's it's been a real time of self development. But also in my 20s, late 20s, I was a people pleaser. I didn't really listen to my gut or my intuition, and that is something that I feel really strongly about now. So I feel like I've shed lots of skins. I know it's the year of the snake. I feel like there's been a lot of shedding, and I feel like I'm probably at my most authentic self at the moment.
that's lovely to hear. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to anyone that's listening?
I would say listen to your listen to yourself, listen to your intuition because we know ourselves the best. Try and block out any external noise and really concentrate on who you are, and try and get back to that soul connection and that soul purpose because I just think that's where you're going to learn and grow from the most.
Thank you. And what are your plans for the future? What's next for Harriet Taylor?
Um, so I want to try and do less in 2026,
Yeah.
but with more focus and more intention. So I've said yes to a lot of things this year, which has been an amazing experience, but I feel like I've not been able to focus properly. So that is what my goal is. I want to do a lot more work with manifestation, and I've collaborated with a gorgeous soul called Laura, and we've got a candle together, and we are launch. But next year, I've got a subscription, and we will be having new moon circles and lighting our candles and setting intentions. So I think that's what I want to be more intentional next year.
Lovely. Harriet, thank you so much for being on the Connection Compass podcast. It's been a joy speaking to you.
Thank you so much. I've loved it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Connection Compass podcast. If you think this episode will help someone else, please leave a review. For more details about Harriet's work and also my reflective container renewal, please check the show notes for details. And finally, please remember to keep talking, keep connecting for a more interconnected world.